Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Illuminate, Navigate, Radiate, a journey of emotional resilience. We're here with our fourth wellness challenge of the month. So really excited to bring another one to you. Of course, as always, we got Michael joining us out at Virginia Beach. So, Michael, how you doing today?
Doing fantastic as always. Always a pleasure to be on here with you, Brandon.
Oh yeah, man, I love it. It's been a lot of fun to reconnect and almost like we never spent 14 years away from each other. So it's been, that's been really awesome. And that kind of plays into, our challenge for today is social, or this week is social connection. And, we thought that would be a really good one because in a world where we are so connected through social media, through technology, through everything else, I think the feelings of loneliness and isolation probably are higher than they've ever been. And so I think this is a really awesome challenge because it's all about encouraging us to connect with people in our lives, around our lives, maybe from our past or, who are currently in our lives right now, ways we can connect with them a little bit more. But I just see the value in that because I've spent a lot of time in my life alone and isolated and pushing people away from me. And I feel so much better when I am connecting with people and when I am talking to people and when I'm relating to people and when I'm around people. That's where I feel my best, even though it's still a little uncomfortable for me because I'm doing it sober, even after 9 years. But it's always really good. And I was just thinking, coming into this conversation with you, it's just felt good to connect like this, have these conversations, have somebody, that I know, like, hey, we're going to connect this many times a week. We're going to do something together. We're going to have a really cool conversation. Even that aspect of social connection has been really good for me over the past, month or two, or, wherever, kind of where we're at with this. So, what are your thoughts on social connection and what it can do for our mental well-being?
Yeah, absolutely. For me, it's kind of the almost most important thing of my day-to-day life that I think has such a direct impact on how I feel. I know that the times where I was the most, I guess, lonely, or where I was by myself, whereas the times where I was the most unhappy with life and what was going on. And I know while those things seem to go hand in hand, the moment that I reached back out to that person or that friend, the moment I kind of regained that social connection, whether it was friends or family, I just had an uplift of my whole spirit. And I think that's a huge part of that type of connection, because whether it's just friends and family or it's a big social gathering, being able to bond with people, whether it's friends or otherwise, builds our own positive energy and kind of the way that our spirit works. And for me, that type of social connection is huge. And while we're challenging you to try to do any type of social connecting, whether it's in person or online, it's a good feeling to want to be around people and have people that want to be around you. And I think that's the biggest, for me, the happiest, knowing that I have people, both sides of it, that want me around and I want to be around. And so I think that's a cool way to really get to a point where you can feel good about your life every day. And even when things happen that aren't as favorable, knowing you can lean on those people was everything for me.
Yeah, and I think it's human nature, and I think that's why when we're building connections and we're building relationships, we feel the best that we do in our lives. I think it's it's like going against our nature to isolate, to be alone, to try to remove ourselves from everybody else. So I think when we do that, we're satisfying one of those deep inner needs of us as people, is that ability to have a meaningful conversation with somebody, that ability to hug somebody, to high five somebody, to spend 20 minutes with, or spend a full day with. That's one of the biggest things that bring value to our lives. Because if you think about the best moments of your life, the happiest moments, the greatest moments, I would I would say that almost all those moments were so great and so amazing because somebody that meant a lot to you was involved in that moment. And, looking back at even the good moments in my really dark days, some of those were really good moments because of the people I was around, like times that we had together, we had some really good times, a lot of fun together. Even though those were some dark moments of our lives, or, of at least my life. And so I think when we challenge ourselves, or we challenge you to build those connections, we're challenging you to do something that's really going to make you a happier person, that's really going to benefit you in a lot of different ways, and help you build those connections that maybe you convince yourself like, oh, I'm not going to reach out to them because they don't want to hear from me, or oh, it's been a week and I didn't text them back, so I shouldn't text back now. When I think the biggest example for this for me right now is just the way me and you've been able to reconnect, right? 14 years where maybe I would say we connected, maybe tops 5 times for like a minute, just sending a text or something in that time period. And, we sent a couple texts back and forth, and then we had an hour-long conversation about loneliness and isolation. And we reconnected like that, and that was such a really cool thing. And it's brought some joy to my life, being able to reconnect with somebody that had a big impact and was a big part of my past, and part of one of the really fun years of our life. My freshman year, your sophomore year, we were successful on the field. We won a championship. We had some really good times on campus, and just a lot of fun stuff going on in our lives, even though probably wasn't the best in the moment. But that's why I think this challenge is really awesome, and why I really believe that when we connect, when we push you to connect, it will bring you a lot of happiness.
Absolutely. I have to agree 100%. It's funny how maybe over those 14 years, like you said, just a handful of times where we may have connected, but I think the first time that I really, I think felt like I was just drawn to reach out to you was when I saw, I think, a Facebook post that you had said, I'm officially sober, been sober for a certain amount of time now. And I was like, he made it out. Like, that's not something that everybody's going to do. And I was so happy and grateful that you had found that type of, I guess, power within yourself, because I know that it was, as much as we've talked about it, just an amazingly difficult experience to go through, and be able to connect, 14 years later, and even, years after that, really getting back to, while I still remember all the good times that when we're laughing, I remember laughing about the silliest things when we were chilling, but it's cool to see us as adults, grown up years later, families, saying that the path that we took to get here wasn't perfect and wasn't set by anybody other than ourselves, but we navigated to the point where we're at now, and now we can continue to grow and share. And I think that I challenge anybody who maybe have had a long time, maybe a long lost friend who you haven't talked to in a while. Maybe it's even a family member, and just maybe that's the first person you try to reach out to. And even if it doesn't go well, just like Brandon just said, send that message or try to reach that out. You might just be surprised how much happier you feel, or just a load off your chest because of something's been built up for so long. Once we connected again, I was shocked at how much we had to talk about, considering we lived all those moments already. So what is there to talk about? And here we go. We could go for hours about all the good times we had. While it was good in the moment for us, and of course different for you and me, I was there enjoying the good times, and I wasn't necessarily per se addicted to what we were doing, but I wasn't growing in a good way that was conducive to my success either. So I think that it's good to connect later in life, again, showing that, hey, we came out of it, we're good. Other people who may have a similar experience, reconnect, find out what's going on in life, and just having that type of connection can really make you smile when you don't think there's much to smile about. And that's kind of how I feel, even connecting with you over these past years.
Yeah, it's been awesome, and I think that's a great way to put out a part of that challenge, right? Is what you just said. Try to reconnect with somebody you haven't talked to in a long time. You really don't know how it's going to go, and I think one thing that social media kind of takes away from us in connection is that we feel like we almost don't have to reach out to somebody, because we could look at their life and say, oh, hey, they're doing this or that. I know what's going on. I don't need to say, hey, how you doing? And I think that's really cool that, you kind of pointed out where you saw the moment where I got clean and something I was doing, and you were able to reach out and just say, probably congrats. And like, I'm glad you're doing well. I'm glad to see you doing well. And sometimes when we see that, you could have just been like, oh yeah, okay, that's awesome, he's doing well, and not send that text and not send that message. And I think that's where, push past that. Oh, I don't need to reach out. Reach out, reach out and say to somebody, and, like, hey, how you doing? I hope you're doing well. It's been a minute, just wanted to say I was thinking about you, and wanted to, strike up a conversation. Maybe they don't text back, maybe they call you back, whatever can be, that can be a really fun aspect of it. And then I think another way that we can do that is, just in those little moments throughout your week, right? Like those little moments that seem kind of meaningless. You know, you're standing in line at the grocery store, you're sitting in a dentist or a doctor's office, and everybody around you in that line are sitting there. We all have our heads in our phone, right? We don't want to talk to a stranger. We don't want to connect with somebody like that. And I would challenge you to, start up a small talk conversation. You never know where those are going to lead. Maybe it's just a pointless conversation. You never talk to the person again. You don't take much from it, and it was just a hey, how you doing, hello type of thing. Or maybe, I was working at a Dollar General one time down in Georgia when I was living down there, and from a really small conversation, I ended up kicking for a semi-professional football team. Never played football in my life, but it was a guy who played, and he was like, we don't have a kicker, and we had made small talk about me playing college soccer, and he invited me out, and it just kind of all fell into place, and it was just a really crazy experience of my life. But all that came from a little connection that I was ringing up this guy's groceries, his food, and he was super friendly. He striked up the conversation because I sometimes feel awkward in those moments. He striked up that conversation, and that's where it took us. So I think that's a really cool aspect of that social connection is you never know where it's going to go.
Yeah, absolutely. I like that example you gave, because I think that as many humans as there are on this planet, and as many times as we walk by another person or stand in line with another person and don't say a word, is almost mind-boggling to think about, because we're all on this planet together, whether you're young, old, or otherwise. Just to even just looking, hey, how you doing? Good to see, smile. Just, hey, what's going on? Hey, I like your shirt. Just something simple like that can not only help you feel like you're making that effort for this challenge, but you'd be surprised how far that can go for the person you said it to. You just don't know what they're going through. Maybe they're having the worst day, and they're not showing it because they're, keeping themselves together. But at the same time, they just needed that one person to say something to them, and now they feel better. Or now they can go do what they were afraid to do. And like you said, that just could build to something more than just that moment, like in your case. Or even if it doesn't build more to that moment in your specific example where you talk to them, they go out and then something happens in their life, and you may never know, but just by doing that, you could set that kind of chain in motion. So I think that's a cool part of this challenge this week, is to really take the time to, maybe, like we were talking about, reach out to people you've known, but maybe try to talk to people you don't know. And I'm not encouraging you to just go up to random people on the street and say hi. However, if you're in a grocery store, you're in a line, you're in a setting that makes sense, line at Starbucks, hey, how's it going? I like your shirt. Strike up a conversation. If they're like, hey, don't talk to me, no harm for trying, you know what I mean? And it could happen, but next thing you know, you guys went to the same school, or you guys have similar interests, and it could just be a friend that you developed that you would have never ever discovered had you not just said, I'm going to try to say hey to this person. So I think that's what's so cool about this challenge is it doesn't matter where you're at, how far away or how close you are to somebody, whether you know them or not, you can still make a social connection, and I think it can be positive if you have that approach.
Yeah, and when we're doing that, it just brings so many benefits to our lives, right? Like when we're able to do that, we get better at making relationships. When we're making the effort to reach out, to connect, to take the time to have some small talk, then more of those opportunities will present themselves because we feel more confident in doing so. And yeah, like you said, some people are going to reject that small talk, and it might be awkward, and you're going to have some of those tougher moments in that. But it really can give you that emotional intelligence to read those situations and to maybe pick up more on, hey, like this person could just use like a, hey, how you doing, like you all right, like I see like what you're going through. And so we get better at those communication skills as well when we practice that more. Right. And I know part of that can be that text message, but sometimes texting is what takes away from our communication skills is that we do that so much that we don't actually talk. We don't actually carry a conversation. We don't connect in that way. So, try to make it more than just that. I think that could be a really good aspect of this challenge. But I would say try to make it a little bit more than that and add some different elements to this challenge that makes sense for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I like that you spoke on how how it can benefit people, especially you trying to do this challenge on a daily basis, because you'll get that type of satisfaction of making that connection, which sometimes is hard to do. And even if they don't take it as well as you thought they would or expected, like you just said, you're going to build that skill for the next time you do it. And the next time you do it, and what you may find is that in my situation as well, as I got better to just talking with people I never met, I got a lot more comfortable and it was a lot easier for me to communicate with the people I did know and the people that I did love, like my family. Just having conversations with people, I could see kind of how they were reacting, and then I could gauge, oh, you know what, my fiance, when I'm talking to her, sometimes I notice that she has a similar thing. Now I know maybe a little bit how to respond to her better. And while that wasn't the goal, sometimes you get those unexpected benefits that help your own personal life beyond just the feeling of that connection. It helps you develop more, I say, strengthen your relationship with the people you already have because you are able to communicate better. And like you said, instead of just texting, my boy, hey, what's up? Cool. Let's meet up. I want to talk to you about some stuff. Let's hang out. And just doing that can change everything, especially with someone you haven't seen, but even if someone you see every day, but you just take it for granted because you're just, texting all day or you're sending Facebook messages. So it seems like you're connecting, and while you're technically not you technically are connecting, you're not connecting in the way that really can be more meaningful by even getting on a face call or really going to see that individual itself. So I think that's a big part of the challenge, is find how you can really connect more than just the typical way we do connect, because anybody can send a text message even to somebody they haven't seen in a while. And while that's a step, let's make it a bigger step. Let's take more of a focused approach and try to really knock this challenge out of the park and get to a point where we didn't realize how socially connected we could be. Because I think people that do isolate or are lonely lack maybe those communication skills that allow them to create those or start to create those connections. And by just trying, in a similar way to our segment of resilience, by having that ability to push through in that moment of what may feel awkward or what, you might just discover that I am actually good at talking to people. I do know how to build connections, and then this could benefit me in my own life down the road.
Yeah, and I think that's the biggest part about it, is the way it can benefit us and the way we can better ourselves, or like you said, better other people without even knowing it, in some of those connection ways. And so, find different ways you can connect. It's going to look different for all of us, as always, as everything we talk about looks different for all of us. But maybe that makes sense in you to go to a social gathering. Maybe there's something going on in your community over this next week, or there's something going on around you that you can go out and just have conversation with people you don't usually have conversation with. Maybe you can say to a friend, hey, let's check in on each other every day. Let's just see how we're doing. Maybe that's a phone call, maybe that's a FaceTime, maybe that's a coffee. But let's at least for this week make sure we're both making that intentional effort to connect, touch base, and have a 5 to 10 minute conversation. To build that connection, and those little things you'll see will make a huge difference in your life, in your happiness levels. Because again, just going back initially to, it's human nature to have relationships. Nobody wants to go through this life alone. And although we'll convince ourselves of that, because I know I convinced myself of that many a times, it's like you need to be alone, you should be alone, be alone. Get your drugs, your alcohol, your negative coping skills, and go sit in the corner by yourself, because that's where you want to be. And even though I convince myself of that at times, I feel 100 times better when I'm connecting, when I'm talking to people, when I'm laughing with people, when I'm smiling with people, when I'm around, and not only around but present and intentionally trying to have that connection in that moment. So we challenge you, drop some comments about, who you connected with, how you connected with, different ideas of how you can go about connecting with people from the past, or new people in the future. But, let us know how you are applying this challenge to your life. Because again, different ideas, different ways of doing it. It's always great to be able to look at the different ways that you apply these challenges and mental well-being to you.
Absolutely. Very excited for this week's challenge, as all of the weeks. And just the last thing I'll say that I think hits point for this specifically is when where you told yourself, you convince yourself, you're lonely. It's when we were born, we didn't really know that lonely feeling. We were just, attached to mom or dad, or, who was there. Try to remember what that was. Even though you don't remember, just focus on not having that emotion in it and make that connection. And you don't want to be alone by nature. Like you said, you convince yourself, but our nature is to be connected. That is why when we do connect, the feeling, the emotion we get that is not tangible, but it's tangible because we can feel it with how we feel. So that's the biggest takeaway for me is find who you can communicate, who you can connect with, get excited about it, show that enthusiasm because it will spread to the person you're talking to. You never know if that's going to be the thing that they just needed to make their day. And even if it's not, you know you're doing something positive in your life to try to help. So definitely like, comment anything that you have, any good ideas that you might have, like Brandon was saying that we didn't talk about, or something that you do every day already that keeps your social connection at a peak level to anybody that's watching can implement and say, yeah, I like the way that sounds, and I could just do a little bit different, and I could maybe have that type of connection with people too. And let's grow together and have a great time doing it. I think this is a fun one.
Yeah, let's connect. Go out there, get connected, find different ways to do it, and see that grow and blossom, and see just your happiness levels go up as you make an effort to connect with those around you. So yeah, so again, this has been another episode of Illuminate, Navigate, Radiate. Like, subscribe, comment, get involved. Join us in this journey. We're enjoying it, and we're so thankful for you to be on this path and journey with us. So have a great rest of your day.